Episode 3 of my ultra running training vlog as I'm running a 100-mile ultra marathon on average every month for the third year in a row. In this week's episode, we go through recovery week after Zion 100 mile, taper week and traveler week as I'm racing Mt Fuji. Hi, Simon here. Welcome to my channel and welcome to my training ultra running vlog. This is a new series where I try to share more personally what I'm doing as I'm preparing and racing for so many ultra marathons so that you can apply some of the learnings, but it's also a very personal journey because ultra running is not only about your training plan, it's not all about the running itself, but it's also everything that goes around it. And I think this week's episode is actually very special in that way, because I actually did not have a training block. I'm going to focus a lot on recovery, and recovery for this cycle after Zion has been fantastic. So I'm going to share what I did and how quickly I've actually evolved from being totally wrecked to being able to run a 100 mile less than 2 weeks later. And not just any 100 mile, I was racing Mt Fuji 100. I've raced, I think, 3,900 milers so far, and I would say it's probably the third hardest course I've ever done. The only one that were above that were Ure 100, and probably Hurt 100, but there's a lot of similarity with Hurt 100. But first, let's go into the training vlog. Week 6, immediately after racing Zion 100-mile ultra marathon, it was a great race. I didn't push too hard because I knew I was probably gonna race Fuji. And I've actually recorded and filmed myself how the recovery went very specifically. So what my body went through in the minutes, hours, and days after the race. I'm gonna post that. I'm sorry I'm a little behind in terms of editing everything because, as you can imagine, traveling across the world kind of takes time. Okay, it's been 1 hour. I'm trying to sleep, but I don't think it's gonna happen. My quads get super painful, and then I need to move them like this, and then like this. And like this. It's just so tight. It's bad. And it's spasming still, of course. Let's see if we can see it. A little bit. Oh yeah, it's happening. Okay, it's been 12 hours now. So we're gonna have an early night. After the initial phase, the acute phase of the cramping and everything, now it's much better. My muscles are sore. It's difficult to walk. I either walk like a grandma or a penguin. You pick. Summary though is that recovery has been much faster than usual, which I'm very excited about. Very often I will have Achilles pain that will be dragging and will limit my ability to do active recovery with running. So usually I will cycle a little longer, but in this case it was a much quicker turnaround. Already Monday, I was back at it. I was feeling pretty sore. Running was definitely not a good idea. So what I did instead is really focusing on active recovery. And you'll hear me say that a lot in this vlog in general, not just this episode, but in general, because I think the fastest way to actually recover your muscle is activating them, having some blood flow, and it will help with soreness, tightness, and everything like that. The only issue though is that your joints are a little bit banged up after a race like that. And I was not in a position where running would have felt good. It was difficult to walk. It was difficult to go up or down stairs. So I felt that cycling would be the best bet. 10-minute easy ride. And then I did a sauna session. Yes, it's heat adapting, but in this case, it was much more about relaxing. Already Tuesday, I was feeling much better. So much so that I decided to go for a small jog on Tuesday on the treadmill, just in case that if I go far and start feeling bad, I wouldn't be kind of stuck. And I went at 10-minute mile for about 40 minutes. So if you're just listening to my voice, just so you know, I'm gonna put always the metrics as much as possible, at least in these training vlogs. Then same as Monday, sauna session, same reason. Wednesday, I was feeling strong. I went for a small walk, 2 miles walk, just to say that I was moving. Just taking a little walk during my lunch break. I don't know, it helps me to move my legs a little bit. I'm feeling pretty good, but sitting all day is not great. Yeah, I think I'm gonna try and run maybe even 10K or even a little more. But towards the end of the day, I was feeling very strong. And I decided I'm gonna actually test what my body can do right now. So I went for a 10K, a 6 mile run at 8-minute miles, which is not, it's not the racing pace for me, but 8-minute miles is definitely up there in active recovery. Usually I would be much closer to a 9 or 10-minute mile. So it was definitely pushing it. And even on my Strava, I called it the stupid run, because after that I felt pain, mostly in my left leg. My hamstring was really tight, my ankles were feeling a little bad, and I was feeling pretty dumb about it, because when you're having these recovery cycle, you will sometimes feel better than your body actually is, because you've been resting so much. And if you test it too much, something could snap, and nothing snapped, but it really felt like I was feeling recovered when it was the morning. I was like, I can work out already. And I went back too quickly, which is kind of a stupid mistake to do in training. I should know better, but I was so eager to get back into training because I was stressed about Fuji that I kind of pushed it a little bit, and I should know better. So I was not careful. I knew I was not injured, but it was dumb. And because of that, Thursday, I was still messed up from my run. And instead I went back to cycling. It was a pretty good session, an hour and a half. I was sweaty, I was dripping. Then I also did a sauna session. And when you combine cycling like that, where I sweat a lot, to a sauna session immediately, it's extremely rough. On Friday, I took my bike. It's been so long that I've commuted biking. It's been maybe 6 months because it's always raining around here. But that was it for Friday. I didn't really have a real workout. I was still trying to recover a little bit from my stupid run. And Saturday, Sunday, I went running with Nora in our neighborhood. One that we did together is my kind of typical mountain run that I do. It's about 13, 14 miles, so a little more than a half marathon with a decent amount of elevation gain. Next day, we did a 10-mile run. It's not a really long run for me, but combining these two was 23 miles over the weekend, which is kind of what I'm often doing even when I'm within the training block. That would be the lower end of it, but I felt pretty good about that weekend, and I was already feeling better from the stupid workout on Wednesday. But I also knew after that run on Sunday that that was it. This was my training for Mt Fuji, and I was off to Japan in the evening, which brings us to week 7, which was the taper and also the racing of Mt Fuji. But I didn't really train, so what I did first is traveling, and it takes a very long time to get to the airport here, fly there, get in the train, get in the other train, get in the bus, and finally be in town. That was probably, I don't know, like 24 hours. So I didn't really work out during that period of time. I went out there, I walked a little bit. I didn't track every exercise I did there. I mean, walking is not necessarily what I would consider training, but I tried to keep moving as much as possible. But one important detail though is that I was still working remotely when I was there, and I was working California hours while in Japan. What that means is that I was working from at least midnight all the way to 8 or 9 in the morning when I was there. And then finally I had my day there. So I tried to sleep a little bit for a couple of hours, then walked in town to visit a little bit, then went to the race check-in, registered, prepare my things. And so I did that for a couple of days. I would say in total I was walking probably, I would say 6 miles every day, but I never really fully adapted to the time zone. I mean, I arrived, I think it was Tuesday, midday more or less in town. And then the race starts Thursday evening at midnight. So that was basically kind of 2 days and a half that I was there working during that time, trying to figure out logistics. So I was still very jet lagged, and coming into the race, I think the most important thing that you need to do before a race when you taper is reduce the volume of workout that you're doing. But the other part is that you need to sleep well and eat well. Eat well, yeah, I kind of did. Sleep well, no. I came in the race absolutely tired, and we were starting at midnight. And I was already falling asleep prior to the race. So racing Fuji 100 was actually really high on my bucket list. When I think about the kind of major race in the world in terms of ultra running, obviously you have UTMB, you have Western State, you have Hard Rock, you have Diagonale des Fous, and then I think there's Mt Fuji 100. It's the big race in Asia, and it attracts extremely good runner. In fact, Courtney Dauwalter was there, and she went on the women's side. And it's also so iconic. It's Mt Fuji. When you think about Japan, Mt Fuji is one of the big symbols. So being able to run in that area, circle, not all the way around, but in the area with Mt Fuji, always in the background. Also, something that I love about trail running is everything that has to do with the community and other runners. And I felt that discovering the running community in Japan would be something that would be very cultural and very interesting. And I was very positively surprised with how things went. Obviously, there's a language barrier, but it was fantastic to meet runners there. But even just the vibe, you can learn so much just by listening to nonverbal cues. I've lived abroad, and I mean, in fact, I do live abroad right now. I'm not from the US, I'm not even English native. You learn a lot about how to communicate and express yourself and understand what's going on just by facial expression and movement and these sorts of things. So we could communicate, we couldn't have full-fledged discussions sometimes, although I did talk with quite a few runners and that was really interesting. But it was great to be there. You could see so many similarities also. Like, for example, at the beginning, everyone was very focused, very, I'm racing my race. But as we went through, for example, the first big climb, people started very serious. And then all of a sudden, you hear people say something that, hey, I'm not sure what they said, but it sure as hell sound like, yo, fuck this shit, this is steep. And that was great. And all of a sudden, you're joking a little bit together. For example, I get tired, I go on the side of the trail, catching my breath, and then someone kind of looks at me and doesn't say anything, but you can see like, hey, are you okay? And I just say, little break, and then we laugh a little bit. Then he goes on, and then a little later, he's the one taking a little break, and we just joke like that. And this camaraderie comes very quickly when you're having such a big challenge. So Fuji was a great experience for that. And the adventure also goes beyond simply running or the race itself. It's also being in a different country, discovering the culture. Obviously, I didn't have so much time. I had, 2.5 days before the race. So that didn't leave so much time. So it was stressful. It was very stressful, and I very much felt outside of my comfort zone. It's a feeling of vulnerability that is extremely intense. I think the most critical moment, and I was walking towards where the hotel was, and it's not a big hotel, it's kind of a little Airbnb, or it's very small and low-key and low budget, which is why I picked it, but it was actually fantastic. And I just walk on this street, and it doesn't look like the kind of place that there is anything really. I was thinking, oh my God, there is no hotel. I was really worried about it, that something had gone wrong, or I had the address wrong, or anything, and I didn't have service. What would I do? It really added a layer of complexity to the whole racing situation. For example, in my last tip video, which was about race day mistakes, I knew going in that race that I was doing a lot of the mistakes that I say you shouldn't do. I was not prepared. I didn't know the course. And one of the things is you should always try the fueling that you will use during the race before doing it. Well, it turns out that didn't have anything that I typically use. So I must have ate 40 bananas. And I kept thinking, every time I was eating a new banana, I was thinking, I think I'm gonna shit myself so bad. I think for a lot of runners in the US and a lot of people that I talk to, have told me, wow, like, Simon, how come you can travel so much? Like, where do you find the money for all of these things? And this race, Fuji 100, is so much more accessible than people realize. Like, sure, I just explained all of the logistic problem that I had, but that's because I planned everything kind of a week ahead of time and on the fly. But it's really not that bad. Even just the cost itself. The thing that is expensive is the flight ticket, is flying to Tokyo, somehow getting there. That's the one thing that will be more expensive than if you were racing, for example, Leadville. But if you race a race like Leadville, you will most likely need to rent a car and have a place there. And that's the big difference, is if you go race Mt Fuji, you fly to Tokyo, and then you can take train and bus to get to the starting line. It was actually much easier to do that than I would have figured. The only regret that I have is that I didn't take so much time off. I was always thinking Fuji is this unreachable thing, and it was not. It really was not. And I really hope that the movie that I will post in maybe a week or two about the race will inspire some people to go out there and race it, because it's a fantastic experience, both from a cultural perspective, but the race itself is fantastic. It's quite unique. A big event like that, volunteer cheering, and just feeling the sense of adventure. Finally, new section in the vlog that I'm gonna probably adjust, but there's a few shout and a few mention that I do want to have. First, I want to thank everyone who's been supporting this channel financially. That's helping me create material. So thank you so much. The other thing you can do to support my channel and directly is if you're shopping for gear for trail running, I have recommended product that I'm using myself. I'm not a sponsored athlete, they're not paying me or anything. So it's only gear that I use myself. And there are affiliate links below. So if you use these links, what it means for you is you pay the same thing for a product that I use myself and I love. And in exchange, the vendor is giving me a small percentage. So you pay the same, you contribute to my channel, and you get some great gear. Finally, in the shout out, there's so many. I read all of your comments, and I'm sorry I don't have the list of everything. As you know, I've been running across the world right now, so I'm a little disorganized. I'm going to be more organized in the future. But congratulations to everyone who's ran their first ultramarathon. There were actually quite a few in the last 2 weeks. And that's it for episode 3, week 6 and 7 of my training vlog. Obviously, special episode. I just raced Zion, and now I did Mt Fuji. And what's coming up soon? Well, first, as I said, the recovery after Zion. I will make a movie about what your body goes through very specifically in the minutes, hours, and days after a race. Also in the work, I'm going to do a gear review about the Speed Goat 5 that I've used now both for Zion 100, but also for Fuji 100. So I tested the shit out of these shoes, and I want to share the experience with you. Finally, very exciting, Cocodona 250 is coming up next week. You'll be able to follow live on Cocodona live stream. Also, there's a tracker so you can follow me all week and see how things are going. And I'm very excited to share the adventure with you. As always, thanks for watching.